Welcome to the inner world of filmmaking. I'm your host, Tammy Magaro. I'm an editor, podcaster, and still photographer. In this show, I will interview filmmakers in all facets of production and distribution. I'm happy to introduce Joaquin Elizondo, who is an editor for film and scripted TV shows like Narcos Mexico, Dark Winds, and Soundwave. He also has his own podcast, Hollywood Editing Mentor, that helps editors in achieving their career goals. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I'm always kind of curious, editing systems, what do people start on? So what did you start on for your first editing software?
That was Final Cut Pro, probably 4 at that time, because I remember I was at the University of Michigan, and we had Final Cut, and might have been version 4, and then went to good old FCP 7. Some people like to call the GOAT. That's a legend. And then from there, I went to Avid Media Composer, and that was tough. That was hard. I remember, but I was in New York at that time, and then I was getting hired for jobs, or I saw more jobs that were using Avid, and I just I got to learn this. And for me, it's more about just doing it. It's tough for me to follow a lot of tutorials. I mean, they help, but I just got to dive into it and just start messing with it. And so, right. And I did, yeah. And then obviously at the same time, learn Premiere. That wasn't so hard to learn, right? That wasn't from Final Cut, pretty similar, but to go into Avid, that was tough.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And I haven't made the jump to Avid yet, but I also recognize that, probably if you really want to be in film, like studio films and TV series, you really have to know Avid, because that's the workhorse.
I get this question a lot, and everyone's, a lot of people ask me, well, do I still need to learn Avid? Because I know Premiere. I was like, if you want to work in union, feature films and or TV shows, scripted TV shows, you must learn Avid. It's kind of the industry standard, pretty much. I mean, yeah, sure. Premiere is making its way in, and a lot of, films and shows are now being cut in Premiere. But yeah, Avid is still king, and you got to learn it for sure.
And what do you recommend as ways for editors to learn the system? I mean, do they get a job and learn it on the job, or is there courses to take? What would your recommendation be for somebody who's in Hollywood and wants to edit?
Yeah, no, the cool thing is now that there's so many, free versions of all this software, right? I mean, Avid has a free version. DaVinci Resolve is free, right? So you can just literally download it and start using it. And my suggestion is just to simply start cutting whatever you can. Go out and, shoot something with your phone, right? I mean, anything. I mean, shoot your family, friends, doing stuff in the weekends, and, make something cool out of that, right? I mean, anything. I mean, wedding videos you could cut. I mean, it doesn't have to be, say, anything narrative. I mean, it's just that the point is to just simply start cutting, and you got to start doing it and messing with the software, right? And kind of then eventually learning more about story and, telling a story. But to learn the software, like I said, for me, it's just simply start a project, right? I mean, you could do tutorials, and again, there's so many tutorials, right? I mean, online free tutorials that definitely help, but I firmly believe it's just more about just digging into the software, just start hitting the buttons and looking at the menus and messing with it. That's how you learn, right? Just actually doing it.
Are most editors today in the studio world, are they freelance?
Yeah, no, we're freelancers. There's some, say, editors that work on certain shows that, they're constantly pumping out, series or seasons, right? More probably like on the network side, where you're still freelance, but I mean, you're more I guess, permalance, I suppose, where you're just always getting hired, right? Obviously, if you do a good job, you're just there.
Right.
But, a lot of us are just jumping around from, different shows, different studios, like I do. I really like that. I just like to really try different, genres, work with different teams, different creatives, diversify my credit list, my resume,
Right.
Both on the type of shows I work on, and also again, I think it's important to, work with different teams.
Yes.
And grow your network and different creatives. I mean, and not work just simply with, sometimes you find obviously really cool people you work with, and it's fine. But I think at some point it's kind of like you got to move on. I mean, that's my suggestion, right? I mean, obviously everyone's needs are different, and those needs can be financial, obviously. And if you got to work, you got to work, right? I understand it. But if you can, I think it's important to kind of just get out there and go around working on different, for different studios, different types of genres, mix it up, drama, comedy, horror, try it out, find new challenges.
Yeah. Now, do you work from home or do you go into the office?
I've been working from home since the pandemic hit. So the pandemic hit, and then we kind of stopped working for like 6 months. And then I started working from home that October 2020 again, and was working from home until last year, like close to the summer. And then they asked us to come to the office. We would go in maybe 3 times a week, maybe, So it's this kind of hybrid workflow that I really, really enjoy. And I would love to keep doing, because I love being home, but I also really like going to the office, and especially when it's time to work with a director or producer, to be able to collaborate with someone in person. Very different than doing it like, virtually.
Yeah.
And I don't enjoy it that much.
Right.
It's nothing like being in the room and seeing like people's reactions and honestly just having fun, going to lunch and, having conversations, that are not even about work, and seeing my other, editor friends there, because they're my friends. And so it's just hanging out, right? And having fun. We're creating a TV show or a film. I really enjoy it. But so this hybrid version I really like, because I could spend some time at home and then also then go into the office a couple of days, So I love that. Some shows or films are in the office completely. Others are at home, 100%. So it varies from show to show.
Do you log into the computer system at work? Is that how or do you have to bring hard drives home and edit from there?
Yeah, I've done a couple versions, a couple systems. I've used a couple now since 2020. But the first one that I used was I was logging in remotely to a computer, say in Hollywood, right? So I would log in from my machine into another machine, and I would use it. I would control it through my home computer, right?
Right.
So I never had any local media.
Okay.
Then the last show, I actually had local media, which I loved, because I had like a Nexus, like a full setup of drives, but everything got uploaded to us from, say, the lab, and then it would sync across all our, all the editors. Well, there was only one more editor or 2 editors, and then our assistant editors, so that whenever I had local media, and whenever I do a change, it would sync, to everyone else under everyone else's system. Depending obviously on your internet connection, some people would be faster, others would be slower, right? But it was great because you had that actual local media. So I was using like my own Avid, and it just worked so well versus like, say, logging into another machine,
right,
remotely.
Yeah, because I would wonder if there's a little delay and stuff, especially if your internet connection is a little slower.
Oh yeah, no, I went through those for sure. Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, and then do you have to have then a computer that is up to speed to keep up with everything? Correct.
Well, that's a good question, and it's funny because I made a video about that. I was telling you about making a video about my podcast setup, and then so I made a video about my home setup, because what I wanted to show was that, yeah, you do not need like high-end equipment. I was cutting, that series for Netflix on a, 5-year-old, now 8-year-old laptop. And so, no, I don't believe you need to have like the high-end monitors and the, top of the line computer. No, we don't work. Because the thing is, we don't work with like very heavy, high resolution media. So for us, like, there really is no need to have like, really top of the line equipment. So yeah, no, you don't need much.
Oh wow. So it's just using proxies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So then what is your computer setup at home?
So I have the MacBook Pro from 2017, which I'm actually on right now, because I could not connect my newer machine, the M1, for this. So again, this is such a workhorse. I love this computer.
Oh, wow.
The laptop. So I have a laptop, and I have 2 monitors, 2 27-inch monitors. And then I have, just an audio input device, a Focusrite 2i2, where I connect my my microphone, this one, and then that's where I get also my output to my speakers. And then I use a Wacom tablet. I like to edit with a Wacom tablet, but I also use a mouse. It's a gaming mouse because it has a bunch of cool buttons on the side. You can see there that I can program a bunch of, basically just an extension of my keyboard, some more keyboard shortcuts. And then I have a gaming keyboard, which I can't show you, but again, I love buttons and all this stuff. Yeah, I have probably way too many things, but I love gear.
Yes.
I just love it. It's my thing. And so, but yes, with all that, I like to switch up with, from this to then eventually grabbing the mouse for certain things. And again, my gaming keyboard has cool lights, like lights, but also I could see at night. I like to keep the room dark, as editors do, right? And then with the lights, I could actually see the keyboard. And so that's kind of it as far as editing. And I have a separate machine, the M1 Mac Mini. But so I use Avid, right? But Avid Media Composer, we use version 2018. And that doesn't run on the newer Macs. That's why I have to use it on my older MacBook Pro.
Oh.
And so if we're still using the, say, 2018 version, I would have to use my my older Intel MacBook Pro. And if we use say the newer version then of Avid, then I could use the Mac Mini, the newer Mac Mini M1.
But isn't that the challenge that you have to kind of go with what version the whole network is using? Because once you go up, then other people can't see it going down. So it's kind of...
Yeah. No, that's the thing. When we set this up, like my last show, obviously we have a tech person, who leads this and sets up the workflow, and that was the thing. All right, we're using 2018 across the board. Everyone has to be in the same version. I'm like, all right, well that means I have to have a machine that can use that, right? And that was this 2017 MacBook Pro, and I thought, I don't know if it could hold up, but it did. For a whole year, cut a whole limited series on it, so it's great.
It's so good to know, because I feel sometimes like as an editor, you're working, you're always wanting the latest version of computers to run, but it's good to know that you don't have to buy it, because Macs are expensive. It can't be doing it every year.
No.
I mean, you could, I went through the Apple and I was doing a setup and I was like, oh my God, my computer with all the bells and whistles are $20,000. It's like a car.
Oh yeah, no, especially now. Yeah, I remember I saw what was it, what are the Macs? I forgot what it was. The very top of the line was $40,000 something. I was like, what is this?
So, yeah, and how long is this going to last?
Yeah, exactly.
How long will this be?
Yeah. No, that's the thing. I gotta admit that that was me back in the day where I would oh yeah, I gotta buy especially when 4K came out, became a thing. It's I gotta buy the 4K monitor and all this. But honestly, look, it's more important. Tell the story, right? You don't need $40,000 computer to do that. It has to work, obviously, and look, it has to work well. I mean, also, if something bogs you down, that's gonna impact obviously your work. So. But that doesn't mean, again, you'd have to buy the top of line gear. And, again, I was that person before, but no, I discovered that, I don't need to spend that much money on stuff. Honestly, it's just kind of like a marketing game, to be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's talk about Narcos Mexico. What was your process and flow in editing this series? Can you take me to how did you get on the gig to how did you do an episode, start to finish?
So Narcos Mexico was my first full season of a scripted TV show. Because I had been an editor for 15 years in unscripted, and I did everything from documentaries to news, sports, talk shows, and I always wanted to work in film and scripted TV. So I got to LA. I'm from San Diego, went to New York for a couple of years, and went to LA, and then I was just trying to make my way into film and scripted TV and, get on the union and all that. And so I was doing a bunch of fill-in gigs. So I would go on a series or, and fill in for a week or two as an assistant editor, because I knew that it was going to be easier for me to transition as an assistant editor versus an editor. So I was very open to that. Or even as a post-PA, I didn't care. I was like, I'm going to do it however I can, because that's what I want to work on. And so I'll, I just want to get my foot in the door. But I figured as an assistant, I would have a better chance of doing it. So eventually, I'm working around town and just kind of, picking up gigs here and there. And one day, I get an random email from this person that says, hey, I realized you just worked on The Day I Met El Chapo, which is the Kate del Castillo and Sean Penn story about them going to Mexico to visit El Chapo. And so I had worked on that documentary for Netflix as a post-production coordinator, and then got bumped up to assistant editor. Anyways, like months after I wrapped, I get this random email, and this person asked me, you worked on this documentary. Do you mind sharing your researchers' information? And, obviously I asked, the post, supervisor, and sure, I shared the information. Hey, here you go. Because they wanted to use it they're like, I want to use this. I need this person for our own series. So at the bottom of the email, in the signature, it said Narcos Productions. And I'm like, is this person from Narcos? Like, what? This is like one of my favorite, this is like one of my favorite shows. So I'm like, hey, so, and I obviously IMDb, and I look up this person's name. Oh yeah, it's a post-producer on Narcos. And I'm like, oh my God, right? And then so I reply, and then at the bottom I put PS. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, should I put this? I was like, hey, if you need an assistant editor, let me know. And I was wondering, like, should I say this? Should I say this or write this? And then I'm like, well, I have nothing to lose. Like, what is this person, like, all they can do is just not reply or whatever. Like, it's fine. So I'm like, all right, if you need an assistant editor, let me know. Boom, send the email. And then it's like, oh, do you speak Spanish? And are you in the union? I'm like, yes and yes. All right, can you meet me on Monday? And I'm like, yes. And I go on Monday and get hired, right? And so at that point, I learned that they're doing now Narcos Mexico, because they had done the Colombia version, and now we're starting season 1 of Narcos Mexico, which is season 4, I guess, of the whole series. But and so I got hired as an assistant editor, and with this wonderful person that I get to assist by the name of Monty DeGraff, ACE, who is one of dearest friends and my mentor and someone who inspired me to do my Hollywood editing mentor program. But I was then able to get a co-editing credit that first season that I worked on Narcos Mexico. So I was a co-editor with Monty. And then the next season of Narcos Mexico, I got to assist Garrett Donnelly, another dear friend. He also gave me a co-editing credit. And then at that point, it was like I was just primed to get bumped up on season 3. And it wasn't easy, I got to admit, but I had the support of so many friends and, co-workers and a lot of people, were championing me to be getting bumped up. And then I did. I got bumped up to being an editor on season 3 of Narcos Mexico. So, at that point, then I became an editor. I was now in control, or say editing my own episode, and which was great. I mean, it was like one of my favorite shows, right? The Colombia version. And still then having worked on the Mexico version, especially me being from Mexico, and it was a dream gig, honestly. It was just, and work with the most amazing people they're like some of my dearest friends and that have supported my career so much. So it was just like the ultimate, just the dream gig for me.
Yeah. And so working as an assistant editor probably helped you to work with assistant editors when you became the editor.
Absolutely. That's a very interesting point, because there are editors that skip that step, some editors are not, don't get to be assistant editors. And I'm glad, because I remember someone asked me when I was trying to break into, film and scripted TV, they asked me, hey, if someone gave you a shot to edit a film or a TV show, would you be ready? Would you do it? I'm like, you know what? I would rather take a step back and learn, right? Just learn the language, learn the environment, learn the politics, and also honestly learn more about just simply narrative editing, right? I mean, like, I just want to learn. I'd rather do that than just kind of try to get a shot immediately at cutting a film, right? Or a TV show. And I'm glad I did. And that's why I encourage people to say that I want to transition, two things, right? It's like, well, you might have an easier shot, right? Again, of transitioning as an assistant rather than an editor, say if you're coming from unscripted. And also it's just great to learn, like really come in and learn it. And then, hopefully, I got bumped up in 2 years to full-time editor. I mean, that's pretty fast. And, some people it happens fast, some people it doesn't. But, it happens when it needs to happen. Your time will come. But I just really think that it's important to kind of sit back and just learn the process, meet people, learn the lingo, honestly, like the language, even though I had been working, say, in media for 15 years, whatever, like it was something different. And I just needed to learn, again, the language, of film, for example. And I'm glad I did it. It was the best thing I did. Yeah, I just learned so much. But I understand now, right? Because I've been an assistant. I understand what it is to be an assistant. So then I know, say, I just kind of understand my assistant a whole lot better because I've been through that process.
Right. So talk me through assistant editor, what they do on Narcos. We'll just use that as an example.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Narcos Mexico is that, for example, we do all the subtitling. Or they do all the subtitling, as we're getting daily, or we're cutting scenes. So, for example, that's why the thing is, when I was an assistant, they brought me in with Monty the Graf, which I had never met, because Monty didn't have a Spanish-speaking assistant. So he didn't speak Spanish. So all the editors that did not speak Spanish needed a Spanish-speaking assistant. For example, my case, obviously, as an editor, I'm fluent in Spanish, so it doesn't work the same way, right? But when an editor, a non-Spanish-speaking editor, would cut a scene, they would cut it. I mean, they would look at the script, right? And then just kind of just listen and cut this, cut based on the dialogue they're hearing and the script they're seeing. They would pass it over to us, or in this case, me, let's say, and my job was to tell, hey, for example, Monty or Garrett, although Garrett knows Spanish, but Monty, you cut off a word here, right? Or you missed something. And then, that was great because I would go into his room and watch every single scene and we would talk about it, right? And so, but besides that, we would do a lot of, obviously, assistant editors in script and film, do a lot of sound design, right? We're really that's where you can really shine as an assistant editor is by doing, temp sound design. I mean, again, well, obviously the pro, say, sound people are going to do that, their final mix and sound effects and everything down the line. But in the meantime, while we're cutting an episode, we rely on assistant editors to do that. And that's where assistant editors can just really stand out by doing really good sound design. And, I would get, scenes to cut myself, right? So then that's what I do with my assistants, let's say on Narcos Mexico and even now, is that if they do want to cut, then, I give them scenes to cut. And, I got, say, for example, 2 co-editing credits on Narcos Mexico. And I've been able to give now my assistant, Chris Kavanaugh, two co-editing credits, to him, right? I'm trying to get him now bumped up, right? Someone did that for me, and now I'm trying to do that for Chris, right? So, I give him a lot of scenes. He helped me out a lot, especially in this last series. We did episode 3 together. Again, that's how you learn as an assistant. You just got to try it, right? And you get feedback from your editor. So a lot of communicating back and forth, and they also do a lot of temp VFX. Sometimes when they shoot a TV, for example, TV screen, nothing is on that TV, and then we got to find something to put in there, right? And so the assistant editor will do that. Obviously, the VFX pros will do that down the line, but in the meantime, our assistant editor will also, take care of that. And again, also, if you're good with VFX, you're going to also stand out. So something like sound design, temp sound design, and temp VFX as an assistant editor, people will love you for that.
Well, it sounds like you have to be really a jack of all trades for an editor. You really need to know sound design. You need to know color. You need to know, how to find things.
I think so. I mean, and that's it. I have this conversation a lot with my podcast guests, people who've come, say, from, working in news, for example. I was talking to James Wilcox last time. He worked in news. I worked in news as well. And you learn a lot from, working on other things. And you bring those skills now to this job. With James, say, working in news, I understand him because I would be under pressure so many times. I mean, trying to meet deadlines and working in live TV was crazy. So now to me, say, having, that pressure is not as bad, right? Because I've been through probably worse situations, right?
Right.
With deadlines and whatnot. But, I used to be I started off as a videographer and editor. So, I know how to shoot. I know how to, do color and basics, visual effects. I mean, I've done so many things, worked in so many different, areas of post and just in media in general. So yeah, I again, maybe that's why I like to do also everything for my platform, my podcast, right? Because I know lighting, I do everything. So definitely, it really helps me a lot. Say in this job now, as my friend Augie Rexach said, there's no wasted work. Everything we learned during our past, helps us at our current job. And it's certainly like for me working in this right now, I mean, I could just do so many things on my own, right? And I don't, obviously sometimes because, I got to manage my time, right? And I got to deliver episodes, but, I do it because I can, That's the thing.
Right, yeah. Well, and it helps out the other editors in the long run, especially the sound design, because you're helping them going, oh, okay, maybe we'll take this one, or maybe we'll do something similar. Wow, that really works,
Right.
Now,
Yeah, absolutely.
do you have a library? Does studios have libraries that you get to listen to? And also getting, like, you were saying about visual effects for the TV and putting something in there. Well, that's stock footage. I mean, do they have like a library of stuff that you look through, or do you have to have your own subscriptions to go find things?
No, very good question. Yeah, no, look, it varies. I mean, some people, especially nowadays, like there are a lot of or several, say sound effects, companies that offer like subscription services. You can go out and just buy like a library or like, again, like a monthly subscription. Some are free, honestly. But, a lot of us have a kind of like just as we go along, we're just picking up sounds. I mean, and we're sharing them with each other, say our friends or, our colleagues. I'm also at times when I can't find something, I'll go record it. I'll go, honestly, I have my little Zoom recorder.
Yep.
That I just go out and like, all right, we need to, get this. I can't find it. So I'll just go do it. It's just quicker. Sometimes, obviously like things like YouTube, obviously it's just all temp, get it from there. I was going to say though because you mentioned or you brought up the whole stock footage. In Narcos Mexico, we had an archival assistant. So this person was an assistant editor, but worked specifically with archival because Narcos Mexico had a huge archival element to it, right? I mean, like we do a lot of voiceover with kind of these mini documentary pieces within the show. So we had a person, say in this case in Narcos Mexico, who was working in like with clearances and would research all this footage. Hence why they reached out to me, right? They needed someone to do that. They needed a researcher. That's what I recommended. But this assistant, so yeah, he would communicate with that person. And so, yeah, we were very careful as like what footage we were getting. And also, when we needed to request something, we would go through this archival assistant, right? And they would keep track of everything, got cleared, what didn't. In that case, yes. Or sometimes, we might use something temp, right? I mean, like another shows that I worked on, if I need, we need to put like a baseball game in this TV. So we'll go find a baseball game, right? Or we'll put it in there, but really we'll flag it, right? Say like, hey, you know what? We got to be careful with this. This is not cleared, but just for presentation purposes, we're using this right now. But clearly, we'll put like in red, like a text across the screen, like, not clear or whatever, temp. So that anyone watches that knows that this has not been cleared, and please do not fall in love with it because we don't know if we're going to get this, right?
Right.
Things like that. I mean, like, honestly, like when we're in an editorial, like these episodes, or a film is, it's going to look messy. Right? There's so many like, markers across the screen and temp VFX and all this stuff, right? But we're just doing that to present an idea to, say, a director, a producer, a studio, knowing that this is going to be done obviously eventually by the pros, who will focus on sound, music, color and VFX. But for now, we have to present this, right? We have to sell an idea. And so all that stuff, we're doing it, in editorial, say on Avid. Or hardly ever, I never go out to say like something like After Effects. I just rather do it in the Avid, right? So, but, again, if assistant editors know how to use After Effects, well, by all means, great, right? But I guess I get that question a lot. So I didn't know After Effects. I'm like, well, you don't need to, but it certainly helps, right? But I never use it,
Well, it seems like to know at least the basics, maybe even to the intermediate level, would be probably good on a lot of things. Maybe not like, and also know what you want to do. Like if you don't want to do after, special effects, then you're probably not going to learn that. But maybe you're a great sound design or color and editing or storyteller. I mean, I think you probably still can make it, but the more skills obviously will be better in the long haul.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, a good friend of mine once told me, pick something and master it, right? And then move on to the next thing. So, for example, like, all right, sound design, like pick that, like really just, nail it down, be really, really good at it, right? When you feel like you're great at it, all right, now move on to, say, VFX right now. Try to master that, right? Because then people, again, will just kind of will know you, say sound design, especially sound design. That's a big one. And editors will know you for that, and like just will not, let you go, right? I mean, you'll be working a lot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But all this stuff is temp, because I feel like a lot of people, especially that are starting out, say as trying to break into this industry, will feel probably intimidated. That kind of self-doubt will start to creep in, thinking that, I need to know everything. I need to be an expert, right? And it's like, I tell people, no, like, I mean, you got to know obviously, like, think the basics, right? Have a solid foundation, but a lot of the stuff you're going to learn on the job. And you can only learn it on the job. And some things, there's some like crazy like error messages that you get from Avid. It's like, what is this? I don't know it, right? But you have good old Google there, or you call, tech support, right? Or ask another assistant, right? There's so much support around you. And so it's important to understand that, no, you do not have to be an expert at things, right? Don't let that hold you back. Because a lot of it, again, you're just going to learn as you go. You got to learn by doing. You're going to fall down. You got to get back up and just try again,
Right. I totally agree to that. And that's what I think sometimes with projects. It's like sometimes when you get on projects, it really forces you to learn things like, I need to do this. Let me get on. Thank God for YouTube. Because you can just quick go in 5 minutes, you'll know how to do it.
I mean, I love YouTube, by the way. I love it. Like, it's my new thing. But yes, no, I mean, like, there's just, again, you have, really just go on here, open up a browser, and you can just pull up, so many resources, especially nowadays. Like, there's no excuse now, because there's just so much information out there, specifically about, say, editing, or sound design, stuff like that. You'll find a lot of tutorials, or obviously, like, I have my own platform, right? I mean, like, I'm teaching these things, but yeah, I don't want people to say like, oh, you know what, I don't think I have all the skills and I'm not ready. It's like, I don't think you'll ever be ready. It's like, this stuff is like, you just got to jump in and do it.
Yeah, and I love about the assistant editor, because I mean, think about that. As an assistant editor, you have so many mentors. They're all around you that you get to learn, and all different ways of doing things. So it's like you get a multifaceted knowledge.
Yeah, no, and again, that's why I'm glad I went that route, because I mean, I learned just so many things. And like, I would go into these rooms, say, with my editor when he was working with a director or producer, even studio execs would come in, and I'm just sitting there, honestly, just taking notes or just observing. It's like, wow, you don't learn this. I mean, you would never learn this stuff anywhere. You wouldn't see it anywhere. It only happens in those rooms. So it's a great learning experience for me. And that's what I try to do now, or what I do with my assistant, right? And even now, the thing is, like, we're working remotely. And for example, like this last show was on, the assistants were not in the office. It was just the editors. But, we have the technology to be able to, say, have them in the room. So literally you can have like Zoom or anything here on the side and just be listening, right? And so I try to, really involve my assistant, Chris, in everything that I can, and also in now being, I guess, working remotely, it's just different. Maybe you have to make more of an effort, right? To have people, say, shadow you, but it can be done. The technology exists. You have to kind of get creative, right? But we still do it.
So you have the Hollywood Editing Mentor podcast, but you're also helping and mentoring. Can you tell me a little bit about how your program works? Can people come to you and say, hey, I'm looking for a mentor?
Yeah, so, Hollywood Editing Mentor, HollywoodEditingMentor.com. I did it. I created it, 3 years ago, based kind of on my experience of trying to break into film and scripted TV, and also just my experience working in media, for like 20 years now. But, I understand what it is to kind of navigate this, try to, say, get work, right? Break into this industry, whether it be, again, not only film, scripted TV, but you want to work on commercials, documentary, reality, whatever. I've done almost everything.
Right.
So I can speak to it, right? I can speak about those experiences. So that's why I created, right? I wanted to really help people, again, overcome the struggles, say, of maybe navigating this industry, and also really helping people find, say, work, for example. But I provide a lot of free content, right? I have my own YouTube channel. I do the podcast. Obviously, I do a lot of stuff to just, help people any way I can. And I really focused a lot on say the softer skills, right? I mean, say networking, right? Relationship building, communicating. And I talk about, say, things of like stuff that I think are not talked about enough, like say about money.
Right.
Right. And say, how to negotiate a rate, or what are people making, right? Around town. Cause that's how we learn, say, for example, about rates. It's like, we just ask our friends. There's no set, rate board or anything. It's like, you just have to ask around. Right. So say having those types of conversations more often. But we talk about, parenting, for example, as editors, we've had conversations about therapy. I mean, so many different things, right? There's so much outside of just working on, say, the software. And so I created this community to support people, right? Not just simply say technical support or anything. No, it's like really also emotional, maybe support, right?
Right.
Because things can get tough.
Yes.
Say as we're trying to break in or as we're navigating this industry. So again, a lot of free content people can learn like that. But if people want to dive deeper, say, into topics, I do offer private one-on-one mentoring. And then I also, last year I started this Break Into Scripted course, which is a course that, helps you really what it is, break into scripted, right? It shows you how to do it, helps you develop the goal, your goal, setting goals, and, learning about how to network, and also learning about, say, like the basics of, I say the basic assistant editor skills to not get fired the first week, right? Because that's the thing. You just want to survive that first week, because everything else you're just going to keep learning.
Right.
So again, the idea is like to not be intimidated by thinking I got to know everything. It's like, no, you just learn the basics, the fundamentals, right? And you'll get by. And so I created this live group coaching course last year, and did it twice, and it sold out 2 times. And it was great because we would tackle a different topic every week. We'd meet in person. And I was there to answer questions, and also have people, interact with each other, network, like-minded people. And so, just created this kind of more exclusive kind of private community, right, of people that are trying to break into film and scripted television. So now for the summer, I'm taking that course, live group coaching course, and creating it into a digital course, right, that people can just work at their own pace, right, if they need to do so. Because a lot of people could not make, for example, the live coaching classes, right, because they couldn't make it on the Saturday when we were meeting, right? And so this makes it more accessible if they want to do it. And also, some people just prefer, that's the way they like to learn, right, at their own pace versus, say, in a live group setting, right? And so, again, people want to, so there's a lot of products I offer, right? And so, again, if people want to, say, work with me closely, then yes, these are paid services, right? But, look at, I always, people reach out to me all the time. I'm on all the social media platforms, and if I have the time, I'll obviously reply as much as I can, right? I mean, like, this thing is growing now so much that it's becoming, harder, for example, to reply to every single email, but I make an effort, right? And if you're listening, if I don't get back to you right away, like, I will eventually, right? But that's the thing, is I knew, for me, say, trying to break into scripted specifically, and also just along my career, working in other areas of post-production, I just always had questions, right? I want to know how things were done. It's like, I just need someone to listen to me. And so I'm trying to do this, not through this platform, not only with me personally, but also to create a community so people can support each other, right? To come here, this is a safe space for me to, like, ask any questions, or if I'm, say, need to talk about, I'm feeling down on myself, I'm feeling depressed, I'm go here and talk to someone who is probably going to understand me a little better, right? Because you're going to find people that probably have gone through the same process. I certainly did. I went through some really tough times.
Yeah.
So again, this is just the more important part of this is just having that community for support and also learning.
Right. And I think it's like, just never give up. I think that sometimes people, like you were sharing, it gets a little daunting. It gets a little lonely, especially as an editor. A lot of times you're working by yourself. Nobody's bringing you food, as I always say. But yeah, and networking is so important. It's always who you know. And it's so funny how many times, like, once you get to know people, and then maybe a year or 2 years later, they're thinking about you. Oh, wait a minute. I know the person that could, I'll see what they're doing. Yeah. So you just never know how you're going to do it. But it's also building connections and maintaining connections.
That's the important part. You said it right there. I tell people it's not only about building, say, relationships. It's also about nurturing them, and you got to follow up with people. Like, it's interesting now, me being on this side, right? It's like, and I get, obviously a lot of people reach out to me, or I meet people, say at events, and I'm surprised at how many people like will not actually like follow up. And it's people that I really enjoy talking to and I want to hear from them more. So that's the thing. It's like the key is really like the follow up and then staying on people's radar.
Yes.
Every so often. And again, people tell me, well, I don't want to bother someone. I was like, you're not going to bother anyone, right? Don't let that hold you back, say, from reaching out to people, building your network. Because especially like in a place like LA, it's an industry town. That's how this industry is built, on relationships. Like, we all know it, right? And I tell people, that should kind of take the pressure off of, say, networking and reaching out to people, because we know how that works. That's how it works. Like, we're always networking, like anywhere we go at an event, right? Of course, we're obviously friendly and we'd like to hang out. I mean, yes, but we're really networking. That's what we're doing, and so that's essential to not only like break in and get your first opportunity, but also to have longevity in this career, because it doesn't stop. It doesn't really end, honestly. So if you have as I tell my mentees, it's like, hey, if you are shy, you got to really work on that, right? And like someone told me, like a really big editor told me, it's like, if you are like, say, shy, you have a problem with it, and you need help, like go find that help, whatever that is, right? But if you need, someone to kind of, all you got to do is just really eliminate that, because it's going to affect you. If you are, say, shy and you're the quiet one, right? You're just, you're not, I've seen it firsthand, right? Where people are not getting, say, those opportunities simply because they don't speak up. Honestly, and I tell people, you got to put yourself out there, like really communicate who you are as a person. Like, that's how people are going to know more about you, right? Your interests, and are going to maybe say, well, I want to work with this person, right? They seem really cool. Sure, maybe they don't have the credits. I see they're hungry and they have a positive attitude, and we can talk for hours. I want to work with them. I want to give them a shot, right? So really important to just simply networking is just, I mean, that's it's so important, and it really is to really also understand it, like what it really is, right? Which is to build relationships.
Right, and I think that this is what's so great about it nowadays. People want connection, like we're talking about, and it's really becoming friends with people. Yeah, it's not just like, oh, well, this is the executive head. This is like a friend of mine that I maybe take out for coffee or just like see and talk to. And another thing somebody had once mentioned is keep track of what they're doing, and then just email them, say, hey, I saw that you won an Oscar. I just want to say congratulations. I'm thinking about you. As simple as that.
I mean, that's a great idea. Great tip. It's so easy, right? It's just you don't need to have like, whatever, like, because people ask me like, well, what do I talk about? I was like, well, there's so many things, right? I mean, it's like you said, it's like, keep track of them and show that you care. Yes. Right. You're not, definitely don't just simply reach out to people when you need work. Right. Right. It's like, I tell people, well, like you said, keep track of them, praise their work. Also let people know what you're doing. So like I use, for example, when I wrap a job, when I finish a gig, I reach out to people and say, hey, I wrapped this gig and it was great. I learned this. It was an amazing experience. And now that I'm free, I was wondering if you can meet up for coffee, right? Right. Now, what does that do? First of all, well, I generally want to meet someone because, again, editors were busy. And when we're suddenly not working, it's like, I want to go hang out with everyone, right? But again, it's tough to kind of our schedules to match. So honestly, very likely someone's probably not going to be able to get coffee with you because everyone's busy. But at least you're showing that interest, right? And also right there, you're just saying, without saying it, I need a job. Right. Right? Because I'm not working, but you're not saying it. Yeah. So I mean, again, it's like your approach, you got to really, fine tune it. But more than anything, it's like just having these genuine interest in people, right? Yes. And what they're doing. And I think if you do have that genuine interest, it's like your communication is just going to be more authentic. And people notice that in a simple email. When someone's like, oh, you know what? This person really cares. Right. Right. So again, I think people, it's like really, researching what people are doing. And of course you're going to connect more with people who have similar interests. Right. And again, you're not gonna connect with everyone.
Right.
That's fine. That's normal, right? But you have to constantly be putting yourself out there, right? And telling people who you are and what you want to do, what your goals are. Because if you don't share them, like no one's gonna know what you want to do and how they can help you.
Right. You have to have your 30-second pitch of who you are.
That's very important, actually. And I've had a conversation recently about that, but you really do.
Yeah. So, as a freelancer, you have always looking for the next gig. Do you have multiple projects going on at a time, or no, once you're on an episodic, that's taking up most of your time?
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm now at an age, I gotta say, that where I just one gig is good enough for me. Like, yeah, that's all I can do. Maybe early on in my career, yeah, I was handling multiple projects, but no, these are these shows right now that that I get to work on. I mean, they're just so demanding, right? I mean, it needs my full attention. Even like say managing this mentorship platform. As I tell my community, it's like when I'm on a gig, I'm out. Like I'll see you, in, I don't know, a couple months, or maybe a year, right? I mean, I obviously I'm not gone completely. I still try to, upload some content and whatnot, but I'm just not as involved because I do have this day job, and it needs my full attention, right? Full attention, right? And so I enjoy then the time off, and that's when I really kind of focus then on the mentorship platform. So then I can also then dedicate all my attention to that, right? So I can do the best job possible.
Yeah, I was going to ask about time management. Like, how do you manage your time when you're doing a podcast and then you have content and all that?
I got to say that's something I'm very proud of, honestly, being able to manage my time. And it's something I've worked on for many years, and I've really paid attention to it and developed, say, a system maybe that works for me. And I've done actually YouTube videos on time management, right? And also say avoiding burnout. Again, I think as an assistant editor, for example, like sitting there and seeing what all the demands were and how much time you have, and really, all right, I don't want to fall behind, for example, right? And so just being on top of things and making a lot of lists, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm all about lists. I love my list and I love my calendar.
Yes.
So it really is just kind of, putting everything that's in here, all this information, things I got to do, and literally like writing it down. And now it's just clear to me. I have so much clarity, and I can see what I can do and how much time I can dedicate to it, even right now I have a whole production calendar for my mentorship platform. It's like this day I'm doing this and I'm shooting this video. Tomorrow I'm doing the podcast, all these things, and you can see it on my calendar, just like blocks of time. And also have, a digital to-do list. And it's fun, like clicking something, it makes a bell sound, and wow, it's like just so rewarding to hear that because I accomplished a task.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a certain software that you use? I know some people use Asana. Do you use something to keep track of everything?
No, I just, I use my, the iCal, the calendar here.
Yeah.
And also I use Microsoft To Do, and it really is like just a to-do list. I mean, those two things for me is like, that's it.
I love it.
And obviously, say for my mentorship platform, I use, Google Drive to have all, my documents and whatnot, make a lot of, folders and for every little thing. I've applied now, say, as an assistant, for example, because you have to be very organized. That's a big part of it. That's what I tell people, like, again, going back to like this, the basic AE assistant editor skills to not get fired the first week. It's like, a lot of it is just like organization. It's not even like necessarily about like doing crazy, say, effects or whatever on Avid. It's like, no, it's just like organizing footage.
Right.
And keeping track of everything. So that has helped me then also become better at managing my time. And then also I applied, say, I guess those assistant editor skills now to like my own system at home, right? Of managing now my mentorship platform.
Oh, that's so great. Do you have any last thoughts for our listeners that you want to leave everybody with?
No, I mean, if you want to be, again, if this is something that you want to do, work in this industry, whether it be, film and scripted TV, documentaries, reality, whatever, start now, like cutting, just practice. We talked about it earlier. It's important to just really, that's how you learn. I was talking to Timothy Good, who cut The Last of Us on HBO, and he was just saying how you just gotta start doing it. and you fall down, you get back up, and you do it again, and you learn. And so that's what you can do right now, especially with so many free resources and just having access to all this technology. It wasn't like this, when I was, coming up, right? And I graduated from college, right? I mean, it's like now it's just, we could do it, with our phones, honestly,
Yep.
right? So just practice, and also start networking now and building those relationships now, whether you're, say, in, college, graduating college, you're, thinking about transitioning to another area of post, start reaching out to people, right? And start learning. It's not only about, say, finding work. It's really also about acquiring knowledge, right? And building that network, right? And just keep on building it. But really, it's also just to get advice. I mean, that's how, again, I learned a lot just going to, let's say, coffee meetings and just asking, how did you do it? What did you do? And the thing is, like, everyone's journey is different. There's like no set way to do things, but you just kind of pick and choose, say, from hearing bits of information from people and say what applies to your journey, your personality, right? And use that, right? I like how this person did this, or I'm gonna do that. That doesn't really work for me, right? But just being really curious, right? Having that curiosity to learn from people, listen, really be teachable, show people that you want to learn from them. And then that is how people are going to want to help you out. It's going to be enjoyable. Right. When actually you're there listening. Yeah, I want to learn, because it's not always the case. Some people are, no, I know this, I know that. It's like, when you find someone, it's like, yeah, you know what? I want to do what you're doing. Like, teach me. And editors, we love that, because that's what we do as a job. We're there. Our job is to execute someone else's vision. We, as editors, we naturally just help people out. That's what we do.
Right.
And so the post-production community is great, around the world. I mean, honestly, again, it's not just about, say, talking about here at LA or Hollywood. It's just the post-production community is so helpful. And so, yeah, go out, put yourself out there, find mentors. And again, it starts by you simply communicating who you are as a person, like what you like, what you enjoy, and also communicating your goals. Like, you got to tell people, this is what I want to do. I want to be an editor, on long form documentaries, right? Or I want to be cutting, big budget feature films. Or, I want to be an assistant editor. I have no interest in being an editor. I want to be an assistant editor, right? Working in scripted TV. That's fine. But you have to tell people what you want to do.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a really fun time here talking with you.
Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to get out there and make a film. Reach out to your local filmmakers group to get involved and connect. Please subscribe to the show if you like it, and follow me on Instagram @TannyMagaro. Until we meet again, what's your story?